All right. Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon from wherever you tune in here. Today we're going to talk about coaching and coaching the brain. Coaching is a rage across the world. People talk about coaching all the time. You saw in my recent posting how many coaches are around there in the world. Everybody is nowadays fashionable to call yourself being a coach. So today I was inviting somebody very special to me as well. His name is Joseph O'Connor. And I came across Joseph O'Connor at the time when I learned NLP way back in 2003, taking my first NLP practitioner training. NLP got 3 different levels: NLP practitioner, master practitioner, and then the trainer's level. So I read his book about introducing NLP, and it was changing the way of how the world works for me already, how I looked at the world already. And along that line, as I became a trainer, I realized I really want to meet this guy along that line as well. And as you do know, tuning in here right now, hey, I try to get the best people for this LinkedIn live session of our Mind Mastery show, the best people that are available to all of us to go deep and share their knowledge, open their minds. So in this today, I really was happy that I got this guy into my show. But as you do know as well, of course, this show is really about you and everybody who's tuning in here already. So I would like to know, first of all, please tell me in the comment section who you are, where you are coming from. That would always be interesting to me, of course, as well. Are you tuning into the show either live or via replay? That would also be interesting. So if you are tuning in live, type in #live. If you're tuning in into the real play, type in #replay. Along that line, as I mentioned, the show is yours. So please ask questions in the comments section. All the questions that you always wanted to ask about coaching the brain. What does it mean? How do you enhance your coaching session? And that much more, because this guy that I have here today, he is really somebody who knows a lot about personal development, professional development, a lot of stuff about NLP and coaching overall. Also, I would appreciate if you like and share this video, share it with your friends, share it with your partners, share it, invite people into here, because I think we're going to talk a lot about a lot of stuff that could be of interest to other people as well. Connect with each other. Hey, NLP, LinkedIn. Business development, personal development is about connecting with each other, getting to know each other. So if you see people in the section that you have not met yet, please connect with them, reach out to them, send a connection request, and just start supporting each other. And of course, as we are going deep in this session about the mind, about coaching, about all that different stuff that we are going to talk about, the neuroscience of stress and how to deal with it, confirmation bias, and how do we deal or undo it overall? How do you create new habits in a brain-friendly manner? If you realize there is a learning for you throughout that session, please type in #breakthrough. Or you type in #insights, because again, this session is about you. So as I look at the people in that session already, I would really appreciate, share with me who you are in the session. Are you a coach? Are you a trainer? Are you somebody who's doing something else along that line? So please, in that session, type it into the comments straight away. What is your professional job title? How do you see yourself? And also introduce yourself. Where are you tuning in from? As I mentioned, we have Joseph O'Connor today. This guy is really amazing. So I loved reading his books, because his books also changed my life. So the first book that I learned or read from him was called Introducing NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, Psychological Skills for Understanding and Influencing People. At that time, I had no idea about what NLP is, but as it changed my life, I read more books by Joseph O'Connor. He's one of the guys in my certified NLP practitioner training. When my students ask me what kind of books can we have, from whom can we further learn them, I'm encouraging more people to study and learn all the time. Then I'm always telling Joseph O'Connor is a guy that you need to buy the books, whatever books you have along that line. So as I call him on stage, just take a snapshot of these pictures already and get ready with your question. Please, please, please type in the question section again. What is your job title? Who you are? Well, I can see it in the topics, of course, in your name later on as well. Who you are, what's your job title, what do you want to achieve from this session today when we are talking about coaching the brain. So get your pen and pencil ready as well, because this is going to be an awesome session for an hour plus. How long we go depends on you. Joseph is ready to answer all these questions. So really get ready right now. Okay, oops, I shouldn't be there. Here we got him. Joseph, welcome, good evening to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making time available. I really appreciate that you are here with me right now. I haven't much introduced you yet, so I want to straight hand it over to you, the microphone, because the session is for you. Just let me know. Yes, let me know basically who you are. Introduce yourself to the audience. We've got quite a lot of people here already. Would love to see who is here. Let me be... Oops, I got a double volume here right now. Whom do we have? We got Irvin here, live from Malaysia. We got Ivana here already. We got Jennifer here. We got Irvin here again. Rosnaja is here. Eileen is here. Amy is here. Ruben is here. Please, please, please let me know if there are any other people in the session. We got different people, coaches, trainers, educators. Joseph, over to you. The show is in your hands right now.
Hi, thanks, Andreas. Pleasure to be here. I hope you can all hear me well.
Can you speak a little bit louder, maybe? Is that possible?
Okay, I'll bring the
without straining your vocal, whatever it's called in the body.
I don't want to shout. Is that any better?
Nope. Guys, can you hear Joseph clearly? Maybe it's because of my side here. Let me know in the comments section quickly if you can hear Joseph clearly as he speaks. Just start talking about yourself now.
So yeah, I'm talking now normally how I would do. The microphone's really close to my head, so I'm hoping that you can hear me well. It usually works well for these sorts of casts. How is that?
You are very low volume on my side. Maybe it's my microphone. Say something again.
Okay.
Oh, that's better. That's me.
2, 3.
It was me. It was me. The magic of the microphone. Good. All right, go get started now.
No. Otherwise, we have this problem. I turn up the microphone, and then you get blasted. You get deafened.
Oh, absolutely no.
Good. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for all the kind words that you said at the beginning there. It's always good to connect with you and others who are interested in coaching and self-development and NLP and the brain and everything else. Quick overview of who I am and where I come from. I was originally, for many years, a musician. I was a professional musician, classical guitarist, and one of the things I found in my teaching was that my students, many of whom were very good, they were concert players themselves, they would be fine when they played on their own, but when I went into the room as the teacher, they got nervous. There was kind of self-judgmental, inner opponent, and they played much worse. And I found even then that a lot of my job was actually to help them with that, rather than to give them all the technical stuff about how to play the guitar better. They knew all about that. So I was always looking for ways to help in that way. This brought me to NLP first of all, and then it brought me to coaching. But I've always remembered that, and I think that sort of challenge is there for all of us. It doesn't matter whether we are performing artists, musicians or actors. My father was an actor, so I know that part of the world as well. Or you're giving a presentation, or you're a teacher, or whatever it might be. When you're engaging with one or more people and you need to be your best, then this is when we need to really look and see, well, what's going on here? What's happening with our own inner game? And I found that coaching was one of the very best things that would help both me and others to do that. So that's what brought me to coaching via the guitar.
I think it's amazing, the challenge, the journey you have taken overall. And we talked about it yesterday a quick while. So maybe you talk a little bit more about what do you think about how does NLP or coaching helps people overall to get to the next level, maybe from your own experience along that line.
Well, I remember when I first came across NLP, it was actually in a guitar seminar. It was a seminar for guitarists, and it was presented as some new ideas. And this is back in the 1980s now, beginning of the 1980s, so many years ago. Presented as a sort of interesting way of doing certain things, and they showed us how our eyes move differently when we thought differently. And I thought this was really fascinating. And then I read, I think there was 2 or 3 books only on NLP at the time. One of them was Frogs into Princes. They were all by Richard Bandler and John Grinder.
Richard Bentley, yes.
And I thought this is really interesting, and I haven't the faintest idea what it's all about, but I was going to find out. So I did, and I read a lot, and I actually wrote the first book outside the United States on NLP. It was about NLP and music and learning the guitar.
Wow.
So this was the start, as it were, and I really enjoyed writing that book. I self-published it because it was. I sent it to 37 publishers. It was called Not Pulling Strings, kind of pun
Nice.
on playing music and psychology. I sent it to 37 publishers, and about half of them sent it back saying, this is really interesting, but actually it's about music and we're psychology publishers. And the other half sent it back saying, well, this is very interesting, but it's actually about psychology and we're music publishers, so it doesn't really fit. It went directly, right in that gap between the 2 stools at the time, which were present. So I thought, well, hell, I think it's good. I'm going to publish it myself. So I did. And it did fine. And it helped me then to approach, with the next book, which was introducing NLP, to approach a established publisher who took the book. And that was it. And I've really enjoyed writing those books. I write to learn. I like to write.
You're writing to learn. How does that work when you say writing to learn?
Well, I find something I want to learn about and I write about it. If it's interesting, and I think there's a market for, like, when I wrote about NLP, I wrote NLP. There was NLP in music. There was NLP leadership, health, sales. What else? Training. So this was about things that I was interested in and that I wanted to integrate. So I would take a kind of NLP base, and I would take a lot of other things coming in as well, because NLP is useful, but it's not the answer to everything. So it's important to go outside that. And it was great fun learning about all these things, and I hoped in that way to be able to take away the hard work of understanding that a reader has to do, because I'd done it all for them already. So that was good. And the latest one about coaching the brain, about neuroscience. Well, this was another really interesting thing that I wanted to look at. And there was a gap, certainly, in coaching in terms of neuroscience and the research in neuroscience and the brain that's been incredibly quickly developing over the last 10, 15 years. And when I started that, this was about 3-4 years ago, there was very little about coaching and neuroscience. Now it's grown a lot. It's a big growth area, and so it should be, because the study of the brain can tell us a lot about how we think, how we are emotionally, how we believe stuff, and how to be a good and effective coach, as well as our own self-development.
So we're actually getting into our own topic headline here right now. Maybe it's one of the last one actually. How do you create habits, and how do you change habits in a, as you liked to say it earlier, in a brain-friendly manner? Because I totally agree with you. Before we go into this topic, that many times coaching is about changing behaviors, right? We are looking at a person. We might look at a performance report, base cards, 360 degrees. People tell me when I do coaching people, this person is not doing this one, he's procrastinating so long, or he's not supporting the team, or whatever it is. It's all very much on behavioral level. Sometimes we are telling them then we need to develop the capabilities, the skills, then send them to a different training. So the difference, what you are putting forward, is actually that you are looking into the brain, how the brain is driving behavior, most likely, how our thoughts are ultimately determining our life's quality or our performance, if you want to bring it to a lower level. Am I correct here along that line?
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to reduce behavior to just the brain, but I
Okay.
think that the way that the brain, I think by learning about the brain, we can refine a lot of our psychological models. I don't think you can be really emotionally intelligent unless you know how emotions emerge, and how they
Hmm.
work in the brain. I think that a lot of our thinking is nowhere near as good as we think it is, and our memory, in particular, is much worse than we think it is. So there's plenty of research about that, and there's plenty of research too about the important things that perhaps we don't pay so much attention to, that we should, like getting good night's sleep, for example, and exercising, physical exercise. These are really, really important for the brain. And some of the strongest research of all in terms of what's good for your attention, your focus, your motivation, your thinking ability, is some kind of meditation practice. There's huge
Okay.
research about that. So it's interesting, and to find these sort of things out. And of course, we can't we can't directly access our brain, as it were. We What happens is that we it creates our subjective experience, as it were. But
Hmm.
how it does that, and the kind of way that it does that, and the tricks and the traps that are there we don't know about, is absolutely fascinating.
Tell us more.
So just one more thing, actually, just a metaphor, because the metaphor, the picture on the cover of the book of Coaching the Brain, is of a candle. So it's a candle with a flame. And this is a really nice metaphor of how the brain works, because if you think about a candle is a material. It's made of material, yeah. And the flame is not. The flame is flickering. It's non-material. It's beautiful, and yet the two go together. The flame comes from the candle, and you take away the candle, then what's the flame got in order to light up? And if you take away the flame, well, the candle's not much use anyway. So the way I see it is that the brain is a candle. It's material, but the consciousness, the thinking, is immaterial, and it comes from that. Now, I'm not arguing that I'm not a materialist. I'm not saying that the brain produces thoughts in some kind of way, and we really don't know enough about consciousness or thinking. Uh, all we can say is that the brain is the physical presentation, as it were, of our mind. The brain is how our mind appears in matter terms, put it that way.
Wow.
And it's really useful and interesting to find out about that.
I'm just writing this down. The brain is how the mind appears in physical matter, is it?
Yes, I mean, well, we our mind appears to us from the inside, as it were. We experience that as our subjective experience, our awareness, our thinking. That's how mind is from the inside.
Hmm.
And when bodies, we experience our bodies, if we really feel them, as a much more kind of feeling sensitivity. We don't experience our bodies as a dead weight of mass, right? From the inside, we don't.
Right.
And so then maybe from the outside, matter is how mind looks when it's looked from the outside perspective. I don't know. I'm just I'm just perhaps we're doing a bit too philosophical here. But
It's getting
the
in.
point is, what I'm saying is not trying to reduce the mind to the brain or the brain to the mind. I think there's two perspectives here, and we need to look at them both because we can enrich both of them by taking both of them.
And how do you change? How do you change the brain in a brain-friendly manner?
Well, the brain, in other words, brain is that it's an organ for converting experience, experience of cells, because the brain is a physical organ. Okay, it's made up of neurons, 100 billion or so at the last count. And what happens is that it converts our experience. We have certain experience, and it converts it into nerve cells. And those nerve cells then, and the connections between them in particular, in turn, give rise to the way that we experience the world. So there's a kind of feedback loop going around all the time. The brain is changing all the time. Uh, my brain, your brain, our listener's brain will be different at the end of this podcast than it was at the beginning. The brain is a verb, really. The brain is constantly changing in response to experience. And then, because it's constantly changing, our reactions to experience also change.
Hmm.
And the problem comes if we get stuck in particular sorts of habits that are rooted in past experience that are no longer relevant to present experience, and we then try to respond to present experience in those habitual ways of thinking that are now limiting. That then becomes the problem.
So we have got a question here from Al Chan. He's a talent scout. And I want to put that forward to you straight away, Joseph. So you're ready for the first question from the audience. So Al was saying how to train
Absolutely.
the. Okay, let's just do it. Okay. I realized as well that my internet connection doesn't seem to be the most stable one. I hope, guys, you can hear me and Joseph pretty clearly, that there's not a delay. I do know my audio is a little bit out of sync, but I think we're still okay. We're doing fine here. Al is asking the question, how to train the brain to recall someone's name from the face or something in the past which seemed important but lost. Somehow in the train of thought, thoughts. Do you get the question somehow along that line?
Um, well, memory is very interesting because memory consists of several things. First of all, in order to remember something, in order to have a memory, you need to code it uh, in the moment, and that's done through a particular part of the brain called the hippocampus. So it's to be coded. Now, what stops the coding of it? Well, drugs and alcohol, for example, will stop that. And if you don't, if it's not important to you, you're not paying attention, it's not being well coded either. So that's the first thing, it's got to be coded. Secondly, it's got to be consolidated. So it's got to have a little bit of time then, and longer term, not in the hippocampus, but in other parts of the brain. They're stored throughout the brain, in fact. So then it's coded, it's consolidated. Then what about remembering it? Well, memory itself is actually a created experience. It's not like diving into your hard drive of the computer and clicking on the icon of the Word file, and then you expect to see the Word file come up exactly how you put it away. Right? That's what computers do. Brains don't do that. It's one of the important ways that they differ from computers, despite the fact that that is the prevailing metaphor at the time.
Hmm.
So what brains do is they recreate that memory every time, and it's very slightly different every time.
And it depends on
And
your
you
emotional
need a
state,
good
right?
trigger to help you there. Absolutely, in state-dependent learning. So um, you've got three things there. So when people say about memory, there's three different components of it. First of all, were you paying attention when it started? If we're talking about remembering faces and names, you've got to pay attention. The time, someone introduces themselves, there's lots of different strategies I've heard, imagine a person's name printed above them, or imagine some aspect of their face and see their name, their hand, repeat their name. Hi, I'm Joseph. Hello, Andreas. Good to meet you. And if you're not sure, say it's Andreas, isn't it? Yeah. So then it repetition. That's the other way. So we've got attention, we've got repetition, and we've got visual, maybe auditory. Then you've got a good chance of it being both coded and then consolidated. Now, if you remember it in terms of faces, that's easy enough because human beings are very, very sensitive to faces. So, over the course of years later, even when faces have aged or disguised, we're very good at picking this up. It's just one of the things that the brain does really well because faces are really, really important. um, so, provided you code it well at the beginning, you're very likely to remember it. So it's
Yeah.
not going to be a
But the
case
challenge might be nowadays, of course, that
of
people are looking at
recall.
their headphones
So
now.
that's
Sorry, I was interrupting you rudely.
looking at the head.
Handphones,
That's
and not
okay.
looking at
Yeah.
people
We've got a
nowadays
little bit of a
anymore.
time delay, so it's difficult.
I get that.
Not looking at people. Yeah, yeah,
That's happening
yeah.
nowadays. Is there a
So
change of how we are perceiving people nowadays? Because many of us meet people via Zoom meetings. So is that a difference overall if I meet somebody personally compared to if I meet somebody via Zoom meeting from the time of how to remember the faces in the future? Do you think there's a difference?
yes, for hundreds of thousands of years, human beings have been used to the face-to-face physical contacts, and it's only very, very, very recently in our evolution that we've got used to computer screens, and even in the last couple of years, Zoom and meeting people virtually. And the brain takes time to catch up. It'll take a few thousand years to catch up on that, so it doesn't come so easily.
That is
But
true.
at the same time, the brain's very plastic. We're very, very adaptable, so we can adapt to this. Um, so yes, I mean, it's not the same to meet people on Zoom as it is to meet them in real life. Definitely not. But our brain is extremely good at at kind of glossing over the problems and the difficulties and making it as if the person is really there. And if any of you have been in virtual reality environments,
Hmm.
that the same thing goes. On one level, you know that this isn't real, but on the other level, it's absolutely compelling. I was in a virtual reality kind of thing. I can remember about 6 months ago, and I was in virtual reality. I was standing on the top of the wall, and I was about to fall into the sea, and it was just so compelling. I couldn't hold my balance, and I
Wow.
actually fell over, but I fell into the wall of the room that I was in. I bumped my head against the wall of the room. So, our brain will do this for us. It's quite amazing how it does it. So, in that sense, it's not the same, but we do well with this, and it does make sense, and we can do it. And who knows, soon perhaps we'll be meeting in virtual. I'm very sure that in about 10 years we'll be meeting in virtual reality. We'll be putting on the headsets and we'll be zooming into a room with what looks like a meeting with real people there.
We got a couple of more questions. Okay, are you ready for the next one? So we are moving away from your topic. I'm still thinking about confirmation bias, but hey, I mentioned earlier, it is about the audience, and we got more people that came in the meantime. So we got Angie coming in. We got Rusna is still here. Ruben asked a question. Al Chan, of course. Hey, I asked a question. Ushar is here. Dr. Ali is here. He's an amazing guy. Amy is here. Rizal is here. So Sui Hang is here. We got quite a lot. Umi is here, and so on and so on. So we got quite a lot of people now. I want to ask a question from Ruben, and we got a second question already from Rusnacha, also coming up in the meantime. So let's start with Ruben's question. He said, what is your opinion about bite-sized information, and how do people respond to it? Better than longer form of information? So is it easier to give short bite-sized information, or lots of information at once? What do you think?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you start with data, data is just stuff that you can communicate. Now you organize it in information. Information has some relevance, some meaning to people, right? Someone's asked a question, there's some goal there. Now, if we're talking about organization of that, we can chunk it in different ways. Usually, you see, it depends on the chunk. If we go back to the famous 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information that we can process in memory, it depends it depends on the chunk of information, how big that chunk is. So if you can find ways to organize information in larger chunks, in other words, you take some things, you put them together into a larger chunk, and then you remember it. And this is what we naturally do anyway, because, when I look at faces, for example, you don't remember, oh, that's Andreas. Now I've got to remember the way his mouth goes there, and his ears, and his hair, and his nose, and now if I can just remember those things, and when I see those things again, I can put them together, and I'll know it's Andreas. We don't do that. We detect patterns. We automatically chunk. So I think the question is not an either or. It's about how are you chunking information? What's the meaning of it for you? And what do you want to do with it? If you want to remember it, then the chunking is very important, as well as the consolidation. If you don't, then it doesn't really matter. So a lot depends. I make a joke in my trainings that a lot of the questions I'm going to answer with 2 words, and those 2 words are, it depends. And then what's important after to say what it depends on, right? Then that answers the question.
And to reach out to an audience, when I want to reach out to a larger scale audience, like on LinkedIn, for example, is it easier to have bite-sized information, or is it easier to bring it in broad general terms?
Depends on what information it is.
Okay,
really,
you got me there.
It does. I mean, I think it's true that the digital world has decreased our attention span, so that we expect something to happen to engage our interest much more quickly than happened in the past. Before, we'd be willing. I'll tell you what I think. I trace this all the way back to I think it's a 1978 film, Indiana Jones, and what was the first one? And the Holy Grail, Indiana Jones.
I have no idea anymore. Okay, anybody
I
who
don't know.
knows how
There was
the first Indiana Jones movie,
Steven,
type it into the comment
the first
section.
Indiana Jones movie, and it was a Steven Spielberg, and the first, I don't know, 5-10 minutes of that was an intense action sequence, exciting action sequence that you were just plopped into straight away without very much context at all. And I think up to then, films were more leisurely. It was more like, well, you established the characters and you got to know a bit, and then that's where they live, talking, and then the action slowly develops. And that film really put you right in the middle of it to start with. And since then, it's just been, whether you think downhill or uphill, now we expect things to happen much more quickly. My first computer, which was loaded by, it was a tape recorder, one of those recording devices. So
Hmm.
the tape actually loaded into it, and it took about 5 minutes to load a program. And if the tape got kind of twisted in the meantime, it stopped and you had to start all over again. And now I get really impatient if my Word document doesn't open in about half a second. So we've been more programmed, as it were, to expect things to happen more quickly, and to take in smaller chunks of information at a time, I think, than used to be the case.
Let me. You brought a very nice example with Indiana Jones, actually, and I think I was one time, I don't know, a couple of years back, they launched a new Star Trek movie. And because I lost all track of all the actors, so I was deciding with my wife to watch all the Star Trek movies ever ever launched from the very first beginning. And the first couple of those movies, they were incredibly slow. The main actors walked when they were going into the spaceship. They walked across the bridge to the spaceship. Sometimes there was no conversation whatsoever. You saw them walking, and it took about a minute or two to walk up there. The movie was 2 hours long, okay? And when you see the development of the movies over the next couple of years until I think 2017 or 18 or whenever the last one was launched, everything as we described happens in an instant. You don't see people walking slowly anymore. It's exploding into action. And if people would watch a movie like it was produced in the 1970s, if that would happen again nowadays, that movie was most likely nobody would go and watch that movies nowadays. So yes, I get that. Our attention span has decreased rapidly if we are not capturing the attention instantly and maintain holding the information and making it relevant to people. Things just disappear. People move away. I think that's what. Oh yes, we got Al China saying the first Indiana Jones movie was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now we got that one as well. Yay!
That's it.
Thanks,
Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Hey, we got one more question. We got another question from Nacha. She goes also directly into that topic. That's why I think I'm going to put that forward to you as well. And I know we are running a bit behind time, but are you okay still, Joseph, in your time frame?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No
Okay,
problem.
cool. Nacha is asking, as someone with extroverted intuition, aka enthusiast of many things, are there any tips to train ourselves to develop a habit of focusing, dedicating our time and attention to one or two important things instead of having our focus all over the place? I think it's a common topic, the common problem we have. We are getting distracted constantly. Our focus is all over the place. We all have 20, 30, 40 tabs open in our Chrome computer and flip from one to the next. So how can we increase our focus nowadays?
Yeah, good question. One thing just that's following on from the last question was that real life, let's put it like that, isn't like the movies. So while all the trainings and the movies and the podcasts or everything else are presented in this much more quick way with smaller chunks, that's not how life goes. So and then then we sit back, we sit at our desk or whatever it is in our armchair and think, I'm bored. Yeah. So I want something to happen.
Oh,
What am I going
yes,
to
I get
do?
that.
Yeah, what can I do? Yeah. So then that's the other side of it. But the other question, yeah, this thing about attention, and now we're very used to having our attention captured, and people are getting very good at capturing our attention. And in one way, that's rather problematic because attention is probably your most valuable
Oh, yeah.
asset for you and for others. You have, what do you pay attention to? And you can only pay attention to one thing at a time. We can't multitask. Brain doesn't multitask. It only does one thing at a time. And so if you think you're multitasking, what you're doing is actually going very, very quickly between two or three things. And we can get better at going quickly. We can go quicker, but that's still not multitasking. And in the end, it means that we do all of those things worse than if we actually paid, I'll do this one, and then I'll do this one, and then I'll do this one. You'll do those to a higher quality than if you say, take the phone call, watch the screen, talk with my friend, write a letter. They're all done worse in that way. And
So how do
I
we,
think
how
it's
do we,
interesting too that,
how do we capture the
sorry,
little
just wanted to
devil
say one,
inside of
one
us?
funny
Okay, sure, sure.
what just one funny thing about multitasking. If I there's a certain sort of multitasking that is actually illegal and will get you into trouble. So if I'm caught on my mobile phone while I'm driving and the policeman says, what were you doing? I say, I was multitasking. I'm fine. I'm very good at multitasking. I can talk on the mobile, change the ventilation and drive and pay attention. I'm great. I don't think the policeman would be very impressed, you
I
know.
get that as
So
well. Yeah.
there are some areas where it's very clearly seen that multitasking is not going to work. Um, so yes, focus, attention. As a coach, what do you give to your clients? You give them your attention. That's what you
100%.
give them. Yeah, that's it. That's the most valuable thing you have. And indeed other people's attention, because if other people don't give you attention, you can feel unreal. You ever had that experience of talking with someone at a party and their eyes are darting round to spot if there's anyone more interesting than you to talk with? And you can end up kind of gabbling because your speech doesn't make sense to yourself anymore if it doesn't make sense to somebody else. So that attention's really important. Focus. Um, and one way that we can help ourselves with that is, first of all, to stop multitasking, or try to stop multitasking, because we don't do it anyway. And secondly, I come back again. There's so much research about some mindfulness or meditation practice that is really helpful in this way, because what you're doing there is you are training your attention in a
I
particular
want
way.
to I want to go back to this multitasking thing and the disconnecting that we have with people when we're multitasking. You brought a very good example, the darting eyes, the basic skill we're learning in NLP actually. How do you build connection with people? How do you build and maintain rapport to get to know them better? And the best example is, hey, what would happen if I talk to you on a party and then you see so many people, I talk to you or they talk to me and suddenly you are taking out your phone and starting to WhatsApp or to send messages or to read a newspaper article. So that would totally, absolutely disconnect me from you, and I would get the feeling I want to get away from you. Multitasking works, I believe, if you do simple exercises. Like one of my trainer was saying that we can multitask, like I can chew chewing gum while I walk on the street or read a book. So that's also multitasking, but it's like it's insignificant, but major. When we need to pay attention intensively on a task, then it's extremely hard to flip instantly between different tasks, which are more complicated for the brain to process. And there was a study years ago, might be of interest to you, might be of interest to the audience. Years ago, there was actually a study done, and I think it was a study done by Yahoo and Microsoft, who researched the cost of multitasking on the US economy. And they identified it cost the US economy 960 billion US dollar annually lost through multitasking. That's an amazing number for an economy overall.
Wow. Yeah. I yes. Yeah. Uh, one little thing you can do for yourself, to just to prove to yourself that you can't multitask, because when we think we're multitasking like chewing gum and reading a book, actually, the mouth will keep going. It's a different circuit to the
Sure,
book
it
reading.
is.
But if you try and do two things the same, but what you can do is, if you probably, maybe I can draw it here. Um,
All right, we're getting in a drawing classes right
over
now. I
there.
think we got anybody here. So guys, please,
Not a
while we
drawing
are,
class.
oops, I can see that a little
That's,
bit. It's a
that doesn't quite.
square.
Do that a bit better. Not very good, but I think you can see it better now. It's that particular box, where if you look at it one way, it seems to be in one direction. If you look at it another, then it seems to go out in another direction. Yeah. If you look at that, try to see it in one way, and then try to see it in another way, and then try to see both at once. And you won't be able to see both at once. You'll be aware of switching from seeing one to the other. You won't be able to see both at once. So, little experiment there. Any one of those optical illusions, where things can be, there's two pictures hidden in one pattern. You can't see them both at once. Just can't. You have to let go of one in order to see the other.
Well, you wanted to talk about your course, the neuroscience of writing right now, isn't it? Would you like to share a little bit about this one right now? Because everything we are sharing right now is online. We are still online along that line, even though the internet connection was stuttering quite a bit here right now.
Sure. Yeah. There's a couple of things that I'm interested in at the moment. One is the neuroscience, so I'm doing a course on that: neuroscience of goals, neuroscience of values, neuroscience of beliefs, with a certification, international certification there. And those of any listeners who are interested in that, the link will be with you as part of this show. The other thing I'm interested in is writing. And so I'm doing some courses on creative writing, non-fiction writing, writing of books, writing of shorter pieces like blogs and articles, because as coaches and entrepreneurs and trainers, consultants, we're always writing. It's like something we do all the time without even noticing it, and we spend a lot of time, necessarily, of course, increasing our professional skills, being better at coaching, being better at training, being better at consulting. But then you've got to communicate that with other people in order to get the clients, to get the customers. And most of the time that's done through writing. And this is something that we don't know enough about. So I think this is something that's interesting for many entrepreneurs like us in order to write better, therefore to communicate better, to engage better. And so this is the creative non-fiction writing, because there's plenty of courses on creative fiction, it's telling your story and creating characters and novel situations. But really, if you're going to write with your business, for your business, you still need to do the same sorts of things. You need to engage people. You need to make it interesting. You need to engage their emotions, communicate well. So that's the other thing I'm interested in, those two things at the moment.
Yes, and you have the experience, of course, through your writing skills. So this one that you are offering here, and I'm going to send that link somewhere in the session. I see it also popping up every now and then. We got a couple of people still holding on and staying with us. So many have left in the meantime, of course, sadly enough, because somewhere my mic got disconnected, your mic got disconnected. I couldn't hear anything anymore for a while. So, but I think we are coming back as well. So I don't want to go back to that zine where I put the link to your course. I will definitely put that link to your course later into the communication, into the comment section. So if people want to reach out to you for that course, please reach out to Joseph. So this course that you're offering, is it for book writers? Is it for content writers like blog writers? Is it for people who are posting on LinkedIn? What kind of course is it that you're offering there?
There's two courses, one on books, because there are many people who want to write a book, many people who have an idea for a book but don't know how to start, many people who started but kind of gave up, many people maybe who's finished but they don't know what to do with it once they've got it. So that's important. And then the other would be for the shorter forms of business writing, the articles, the blogs, those sorts of things. Same sorts of skills involved, but of course the book is a much bigger thing to do, and publication of that is also a separate subject.
Why would people write a book nowadays still? Why do people write a book? Why is that important still?
People write a book for all sorts of reasons, and that's one of the things they need to be clear about before they start. They write a book because it's a medium of communication. They feel that they have learned a lot, and they feel that it needs that art form in order to put it over in the best possible way. Of course, write a book for credibility. If you have a book out there with your name on it, it gives you credibility as an expert in the field. Write a book to learn. You want to learn about something, write a book about it, certainly. The sad fact is that if you write a book for money, you're probably going to be disappointed, because books don't earn much money, very little in fact, directly, although in the non-fiction world, of course, they can earn you quite a lot indirectly through the credibility that you get, and the fact that a book is a marketing tool that you don't pay for, right? It goes out there, it's got your name on it, and you're not paying for it. In fact, you're getting money for it if people buy it. So that works pretty well. But you don't expect to make a lot of money directly from books at all.
Okay.
So many reasons why.
Section here right now, sadly enough. So I'm putting me and him together side by side. Joseph, are you still in the mood to talk a little bit about? Still in the mood to talk about stress? And how do we manage stress? That's what was a time when we were cut off brutally by the internet, by something that happened.
Well, stress is, well, where do we start with stress? Stress is when the perceived demands on you are greater than your perceived resources. So there's more things happening to you that you can't deal with, and that you feel you're not in control of. So you don't have the resources to deal with it. And this sets up in the body, starting, of course, with the brain, because we feel threatened. It ends up with overproduction of cortisol, which is a hormone that's produced by the adrenal glands down in the kidneys. And cortisol, while you hear a lot about it, and it's often people often talk about it as if it's a villain and it's a bad thing. We need cortisol. Cortisol, when we wake up in the morning, our cortisol peaks. It gets us alive and awake and motivated and up and running. So cortisol is very important. And then it kind of keeps going up through the day to about mid-afternoon, then it starts dropping down in the evening, so that when we go to sleep, the cortisol level is down, which is what you'd hope for. Now, if you are constantly stressed, in other words, you feel that the demands are being made on you that you are helpless to do anything about, or you don't have enough control, then the cortisol doesn't let up. In other words, the brain sends signals down to the adrenal glands. We're on, keep making the cortisol. We need it, right? And cortisol is fine in its place, but it's not good for you if you have too much. So chronic stress means basically that on the physical side, you're getting too much cortisol too much of the time. And that's not good. Because then that leads to memory problems, it leads to digestive problems, it leads to cardiovascular problems, anxiety, all of these sorts of things. And those are the symptoms of stress, usually what people say. So in terms of dealing with stress, if you understand then what's happening, you need to deal with that in first of all, either a way to cut down the demands of your environment on you, and secondly, to increase your own resilience to the demands that are made on you. So it's always two ways to deal with that.
Joseph, I don't think we are live actually. I can't see anymore something is happening. Officially, I'm live via the software, and it's the first time that happened to me. I hope, and it's just between the two of us here right now, so let's finish that session here right now. My apologies for all that problem that came up in between here right now. I'm terribly sorry, but I enjoyed the conversation with you. I hope you had some fun along that line as well. Did you have at least some fun? Okay, good.
Of course, absolutely. These sorts of things are always dependent on technology. So,
absolutely. Now, if it's still online, thank you so very much. I'm switching off. I wish you a great evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you right now are. Thank you very much, Joseph, for joining me along that line. And I speak to you all soon again when I'm back in Malaysia. Bye-bye by then.